Welcome in. You're speaking with the Meeple's champion, and it is day 2 now of going into these countdowns. Yesterday, we did 365 through 316. Today, we're kicking off with 315 in our next group of 50 games. So, today, we're going to be kicking right off with a game called Palanque. Palanque is a very simple game. You're placing out things on the board, slowly putting out these basically Egyptian style or maybe Mayan Incan style temples, and trying to connect for different radiuses for, groupings together and such. It's pretty simple. That's actually the issue with the game for me. That's why it's so low on the list. It's not a bad game. It's just more of one that's more for kids. I think when I got it, it was early on in the board gaming area for me. I was just starting to learn about the extra games, and I thought this looked really unique. It was a great theme, but not really that unique. Right above it at 314 is an old classic, Clue. Clue still holds up. This is a game that it really would be much better if it wasn't for the dice rolling. Rolling dice to move in this game is the worst thing that they do to themselves. If they could find a way to just mitigate that, get it out of the game, this game would still be strong. There's other versions of this that they've made. Other companies have come out doing a version of trying to solve a mystery like this that do it better because they take away that annoying factor of you're doing really well, you can't win the game though because you keep rolling 1s and 2s and you're not able to make it to the next room for an accusation. Number 313, Dubious Alliance, the fantasy card trading game. So Dubious Alliance is a grouping of orcs, and you're in this game where you're going on a quest and you're trying to see what you can do together on this dubious alliance. These guys who are working together, but they're not really trying to work together. It's an okay game. It's a great theme, really good put together as far as all the artwork and the cards and everything. It's built well. It's not one that I found really an easy way to get out yet. So whenever I try to play it, it's not the right group yet. I think you have to be in the right setting for this, but it's a game that has, for a Kickstarter that I backed, it has a lot of potential. It's just not as much potential as I would hope for getting it to the table. Number 312, I'm Right, You're Wrong. So this was actually, from when I started doing my 365 reviews, a game that was sent to me from the creator before it was released. I believe they were getting an Australian release. It was getting picked up in a bunch of stores in Australia, and they were asking me to do a review. And I really liked this game. Your real goal was to just kind of get your hand completely out. Get it all out of your hands. It was a good game. I think for those style games, I'd pick it over most of them today. I liked it. It was just not one that I'm going to pick for board game nights very often. I like a good card game inclusion, and this is a good card game. But when I do my card game nights, I tend to go in the direction of trying to do something that's more about trick taking, and this doesn't do that. So it falls a little bit further behind the other card games I prefer for their style. But it's a very good game. The next up is, at 311, Caverna. Told you I wasn't a big fan of Agricola because Caverna was the better version, and it was. I like Caverna. It is a game that I may not choose it very often. In fact, I probably would never choose it. But if somebody else does, I'm excited. I like the game. I like the concept of how you're trying to build inside and outside of your cave. Are you after the animals? Are you trying to make the buildings? Are you trying to make the food, the plants? It's a great game. Number 310, Thunderstone Quest. Now, I own Thunderstone Quest. I have considered should I sell it. I won't. The reason being is it's a great game. It is a tough one to get to the table, but sometimes you just have to suffer a few of those in your collection because they're worth it for the occasions you get them out. When I've played this game, I've had a great time. It's one that I will play with my group of friends on my game nights. My wife and I have played together before. It really wasn't a big hit for us. Maybe it was because it was only 2 of us. The game can go long, and that's where it really has the issue. Well, I shouldn't say that. It can go long, which is an issue, but that length is partially in part because the setup is tough. Setup and pack down of this game can be a while. You're not talking about a huge amount of time, but maybe 15, 20 minutes to set up, at least 10 minutes to pack down. So 30 minutes of your time already is there, and the game itself can take over 2-3 hours. It's a long game. That's what hits it, because the game itself is great. 309, Lancaster. Lancaster's actually a good game. Again, we have yet to hit a game that I'm going to specifically be choosing. I'm not opposed to choosing these games yet. We've reached an area where I like these games. It's just not a game that I'm going to be choosing over other options, but I will be excited when others pick it because I still like the game. I like Lancaster. It's not a choice for me to say I'll put it out, but it's a game that I'll be happy if you choose it. Number 308, Mr. Jack. Now, I don't own Mr. Jack because I prefer to play this game on Board Game Arena. And even then, since we've moved my game group from Board Game Arena after the pandemic was no longer an issue to in person again, I'm not going on there playing that game ever. That being said, this is a great game about hunting down and trying to figure out who is Mr. Jack, and I really like this game. I won't pick it myself in person, and I'd prefer not to play in person, but if somebody asks me to play online on Board Game Arena, I'm down. 307, Taco, Cat, Goat, Cheese, Pizza. This is a party game. This is, again, my type of area that I say, I'm never going to choose a party game, but it's a great party game. My family, my sisters love party games, and that's fine. If you like a party game, that's acceptable. It's a game. I'm just not into that style game, so when they're chosen, it's because somebody else requests it, not me. But it's a good game. 306, Letters from Whitechapel. This is one that I'm never thinking about I want to play it. But when it's chosen, it's such a blast. Especially if you are playing as the murderer and you're the one on the run and you're trying to dodge people. At the same time, communicating in a group, I've been on that side where, you're part of the four trying to hunt down the murderer. It's a fun game. It's one that I think if there were too many like this, I wouldn't be excited. And I know there's other games of this style. I've heard about Fury of Dracula is quite similar to this. I would only want one of these games to be played. This is the one I've played before. Maybe I need to try one of the others, and one of those would take its place. But for now, this is the standee for this style game. It's one I won't choose, but one I'd be excited to play, and I'm excited to play it on either side. 305, Aldabas, Doors of Cartagena. Now, this is a card game where you're setting it up with all the doors on the board. You're collecting money. You're trying to unlock doors. It's a fun game. It can be played solo, which is the reason why it's so high up on here, because, well, it's one I'm probably never going to really push for other people to play. On a day where I have a little bit of time, I have no problem putting this one out. Number 304, Payday. It is 304. This is an old classic. It's not one I'm ever going to pick, but when I'm at my family's house and they're not in the mood to go play a party game, this is one of the older games that may get pulled off the shelf on occasion. And when I say occasion, every few years. You're talking 3+. It's not often going to get picked, but when it is, I don't mind playing it. It's still just kind of an old school fun game. Number 303, Transylvania, Curses and Traitors. Now, this was one of my early Kickstarters that was bought for Halloween, and it fits the theme great. As you progress, you put out more spots on the board. You are initially all humans trying to kill off the monster, but as you go, you can get infected and become a monster yourself and change up your winning conditions. Not one I'm going to pick very often, only in October at that, but it's a fun game. Number 302, Monopoly Mega Edition. Now, I'm not a Monopoly fan anymore these days, but as a kid, I played countless games of Monopoly. Hundreds, at the very least. And as I got older, and I learned about new games, and Monopoly got annoying because it could take a really long time, I learned a few things. One, I learned the proper way to play Monopoly, which if you play it that way takes an hour. And when we started doing it that way, me and my friends never had an issue with that game taking more than an hour. And two, I found the Monopoly the Mega Edition. It included additional buildings, skyscrapers, bus tickets. It was a really great version of the game that gave it just a little bit extra to help the game progress. Go a little faster, be a little better. I'm not one that's going to choose this game ever. It's still on my shelf for now, although it is a consideration to be culled at some point in the future, depending on if I really think I'm ever going to play it again. But for those people who want to play Monopoly still at join, when my wife's family, my family, somebody wants to play Monopoly, it's a better version to play in a gamer's collection. Number 301, Terra Mystica. Now, I've played Terra Mystica twice. It was on Board Game Arena. I was really excited to try the game. And after the first try, I played it again a couple months later, and my determination was this. I really like Terra Mystica, but to be good at the game, not great, just good at the game, you need to play this game regularly, at least once a month, maybe twice. If you're not doing that, then you're not really aware enough about the strategies of the game to truly compete, even if you're against other people who are on your level, it's just you all kind of feel a little bit lost during the game, and it can be a little overwhelming. For that reason, I like the game. I just don't pick it enough, and I don't think I will because I like variation. And that's why it's a game that I'm excited about if we're going to play it, but I realize I'm going to be a little bit lost. So the real thing would be hoping that maybe at some point it gets picked on like a month of the year, and we say, let's play this for 4 weeks in a row. That way that third and fourth game feel really competitive, and then we kind of pull out and we don't play it for another 11 months. That's the best case scenario I could see for me, but that's my 301. 300, Apples to Apples. Apples to Apples is a party game. It's about putting out cards that you can kind of go in one of two directions. Either you're trying to see if you understand who is who and pick something that makes sense, which is not the way people play it. Or you're playing it because you're trying to find something funny. You're trying to find a combo that makes people laugh, and that's the one that gets picked. It's a fine game. This was the first of its kind in the card release versions. Other games have come, a lot of games have come since that have taken this to an extreme and made it much funnier and also much more offensive, but it's a good game. It's not one I have played now in over a decade, and I honestly don't see myself playing it again, but it's not because the game is bad in any way. It's just so few people have this. There's so many different versions to own now, and we all know that there's a better version of this that most people have now, and that's the game that is going to come up a little later on this list. Number 299, Masquerade. Masquerade is a small little card game that's about going to a masquerade party and trying to hide who you are. I love a hidden identity game, so while this is not a game I expect to ever want to choose in general because there's way better versions of this, it has a great mechanic in it that is one of my favorites, and it's a fast game. And for those two reasons, this is one that, at random, I might pick it off the shelf when I have just a few people over and we're trying to find something small and quick and simple. Masquerade. 298, Pass the Popcorn. Now, I'm not a big one when it comes to having to do some type of a trivia game, but Pass the Popcorn is kind of perfect because it's a combination. You're giving different clues that have to do with movies, and the clues can be people who are in the movie, characters in the movie compared to the actors, quotes from the movie. There's a bunch of things, and you're just trying to get the title of the movie, and I like that. You can earn additional points depending on what it is that you use to how many clues you got. And to me, because I'm a movie fanatic, I love movies. I see as many as I can in a year. I'm constantly watching movies. I watch movies I love repetitively. This is a game that hits me for the trivia because it's something I will end up being able to compete in, and my sisters and my wife and a lot of my friends all can as well. 297, this is my wife's favorite game. So as a result, it's moved up on my list because I like to play it for her. Jenga. Jenga's very simple. Everybody should have heard of this one. You know, you have your stack, you're pulling out a piece, you're putting it up top, and you keep going. Rotate, rotate, rotate. There isn't a winner, there's just a loser. Somebody pulls it, the stack falls over, you're done. If you want to, you can play the game elimination style. Up, they knocked it over, they're out, restack, start over, next one out, and get down to one person left. But if you play that way, and you're playing with like 5 people, means the first person knocked out is going to have to wait now through an additional 1, 2, 3 games until they get to play something again. That's a long time. And I mean, maybe you finish up in 5 minutes a game. It's only 15 minutes, but realistically, it's going to be 10 or 15 a game. Number 296, Yakuza. Now, Yakuza, when I got it, to me, was an Asian risk game. That's how it looked to me. But there was a hidden tray. You were allowed to bid on what it was you were going to do for the round, which gave you advantages, making new people, moving, putting out your people who were in charge. The first and second time I played this game, I loved it. Me and my sister played one-on-one. We had a blast. Me and my friends played in a 4-way game. We had a blast. And then I pulled it on my sister again, and the magic was just gone on that third play. We both were just kind of like, what happened? This was great. And it doesn't hold up. The more you play it, there's such other games these days with miniatures and fighting that do a better job than what this was doing. It added a little extra to be better than the old school Risk game, but not enough to in any way compete with, say, Risk Legacy. And so for that reason, it's a game that I did cull and I sold it off. And the reason is because it was a lot of money. It was a big game. It was taking up a lot of space. So I bought it for 90. I think I sold it for 75. So I made a lot of money back on that game. I earned a lot of space in my closet. At the time, I didn't have all this. I was in my old apartment. I had a lot smaller space. So a game of that size was just a big nuisance to my collection. So for a game that I knew I wasn't having as much fun as I used to with it, and it was a rare pick, it had to go. 295, Skulls of Sedlak. Now, a friend of mine lent this to me. It's a small little game. It's very fast. This is one that I may pick once in a while. If I owned the game, I think this is one that I would just pull out on a night when my wife's like, I want to play, but I don't want to do anything for more than like 10 or 15 minutes. Like, I got a headache tonight, or I'm tired. And I'd go, oh, let's play this one. It's a quick 5-minute game. We could play once or twice or 3 times. And when you say you're done, we're done. That's the reason it would work for me. I don't own the game, but not because I don't like it. It's just I didn't own the game. My friend had it. I borrowed it. That was it. 294, Risk, The Walking Dead. Now, for those of you who've played Risk, classic Risk is great. The Walking Dead edition was very interesting, the way it changed things up. You basically had your setup. You're trying to conquer the board. But there's 2 ways. You could conquer the board, but that's not easy because you have these walkers coming in every round. And unlike everything else, the walkers can just kind of hit you anywhere. So there's a big luck factor as to who's going to get hit when and where by the new hordes entering the board. There's also the real competition in this game isn't as much conquering the board, although you could. It's more so who's the last one standing, because as you're eliminating people, the walkers are coming in. What it ends up being in this game, and what I kind of liked about it, was there was an advantage to being the weakling. If you were to stay in a corner and build up your forces, there's a lot less land you own. The odds are a lot less that you get attacked. You might be able to let all your opponents be the ones getting into battles with the walkers, wiping them out for the most part, but getting hit a bit. And when you start to spread, you spread quick. So I liked it for that. But it's not a game I own, and it's not one I want to own, but it's one that if somebody were to pull this out, it is a great game. Yes, it could fit for the Halloween theme, but really you could play it any time of the year. 293, here we are. We were just talking about this on 300. The better game of apples to apples, Cards Against Humanity. Now, here's my rule. My wife owned a version of this game. That's great. So we have a small little thing of cards. I get no expansion for this. My friends have it with all the expansions. And I make it very clear. I can play this game once a year. It is a blast. And when you play this game, you have so much fun. The problem is, even with all those expansions, the jokes you're making are going to be repeated. And as such, if you play this game too close together, it's not that funny the next time. You need a big space. So this tends to be, for me and my friends, our New Year's game. We played it New Year's for a few hours, we have fun, we laugh, and then I don't want to see it until the next New Year's. Because if I do, it's just not funny to me. Sometimes I'm not excited going in, but I will find a way to have fun the next year playing it again. But that's the reason I haven't gotten any expansions. It's the reason I didn't buy it for my collection. It's my wife who owned it and gave it into my collection. I like the game, but it's not one I'd ever pick outside of that one day a year. 292, Blockus. Now, I like a puzzly game. Tetris is one of my all-time favorites for just kind of wasting an hour on the computer or on your Game Boy. So Blockus was a great version of that, where everybody's a different color, and you start in a corner, and you go, okay, here's my first one, and now, when you place, you have to make sure that you're placing from your stuff, and you are going to keep trying to place more and more down, and you have to keep going until you can't place. Meaning, I go, you go, the next one goes, the next one goes. Up to 4 players can play this. When it's your turn and you go to place, and there's nowhere to put your piece, you're out. And this is interesting because there's a bunch of different style pieces you have. So the idea is you want to get the big ones out quick so that the little ones can fill in between later. And your opponents are also trying to kind of almost make a circle so that they can cut people out. So you might be coming across the board and I might be going this way and like hoping to cut in. It's an interesting game. I like it for its puzzly nature. It's not one I currently own, but I wouldn't be opposed to buying this game because I do like a little one like this, I think my wife would enjoy it, and I think my daughter will be able to play this game not that long from now. Number 291, Rook. Rook is a trick-taking game from very long back in the day. I love trick-taking games. This is the lowest ranked of all of them, and the reason being is I bought the game because it's trick-taking and it's an old school classic. However, when I played the game, I just found that it was okay, it works, but it doesn't have the extra twists that today's games have. I love getting more and more trick takers to add to my collection so that I can see these different interpretations and I'm able to play with really a different rule set where one and another feel completely different. And this game is a very simplified version of that. It's just missing that extra complexity. So it's good. I would never pick it though because there's like 10 trick takers I like more than it. 290, Mantis. We are back to the party games. This is one that my sister had picked out. I mean, it's a good game. There's nothing wrong with Mantis. It's a lot of... It's one that you're going to get out with your family and you're going to have a good time. But again, we have yet to get to the point of me picking a game. When they want to play this game, I have no problem with Mantis hitting my table. It's not a bad game. It's just I'm not a party game person. So I'll have fun playing with them, but I'll be sitting in my head going, man, I'd rather have a Zool on the table right now or something like that. I like more of a thinky one, not ones where it's quick action and it's more for the humor. But it's still okay. So 290. 289. Now, this is an interesting pick because I got rid of all these games. And then somehow, about a year later, I kickstarted another one of these games. I don't know how it happened. I know how it happened. It's because of the theme. Because the game is technically Munchkin. However, this was the deluxeified Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Munchkin. Now, I'm a huge Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan. I grew up on the old school 80s cartoon. I watched the 90s cartoon, the 2000s cartoon. I watched the original trilogy. I watched the new 2 ones from Michael Bay. I watched the cartoon movies. I love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's a great, fantastic everything for me. So I wanted a board game of it. But whenever I was looking at any of their kind of board games, they just didn't look great. Then I saw this, and I had already gotten rid of literally Super Munchkin and the old like the old West Munchkin and Cthulhu Munchkin. I had like 7 or 8 different ones that I combined into this big thing. And they were kind of my early games. They were in between my old school games and when I started playing Catan and Ticket to Ride. These were something that me and friends found and we were playing together for a few years. I got rid of it all, and then I saw this about a year later and I was like, you know, I don't love Munchkin, but if I get to play it as a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle theme and it's only this one game, I'd like it in the collection. So it's in the collection. I'm not opposed to it, but it's not one I'm going to often pick. This is a game that's more likely to get picked again when, like, say my daughter's a little older, or if I were to have like my high school friends get together with me, not my normal game group. My wife, I don't think is going to like it. My sisters, I don't think are going to like it, but I think my old high school friends would enjoy this and we'd be able to kind of have a nostalgia game night together. 288, Brass Birmingham. Oh my god, this game. Oh, let me tell you why this is 288. Because we're getting close. We're getting close to a consideration point of when I'll start picking games. Yes, we have yet to get to a point where I've set a game, and this is a game that I would personally say, let's all play this game. We haven't reached that yet. But Brass Birmingham is close. The reason it's close for me is this. The concept of the game is awesome. I love the idea of there being like a first half and a second half of the game. The idea of trying to build out and build up your resources and pay them out to get money. But this game, the theme is very dark. And I don't mean dark like it's, evil. I mean dark like the board is a very dark board. And the theme is all about Industrial Revolution, basically. And the setups of everything you're working on this game, as much fun as there is to the game, there's also a lot of stress because it's not easy to really know what you're doing and how to make it work. I've played this game 2-player. I think I played it 2-player once, 3-player twice. And it's just every time I'm not really sure what I'm doing. And maybe I just need to commit and play it a bunch of times until I really understand it. And then I can kind of lower it down. It's one that I keep saying to myself, man, I should love this game. And I don't hate it. I don't dislike it. But it's just like I play it and I'm having fun while I'm playing it. But I'm also fully aware that I'm kind of a little stressed. And that it's just, I feel like there should be more happening. And I don't quite get how to unlock that yet. It's a game that I think will hopefully one day get a few more plays and move up on the list because I finally truly get it. But for right now, it's got to stay where it is. This one kind of hurts. After having Brass Birmingham at 298, you go to 297 for Get Bit. It's such a different game. It's so much easier. And how it beats out Brass might make some of you just kind of scratch your head like, what? How is Get Bit above Brass? Well, I'll tell you how. Because we're still only in the very low 200s. We're at 287. We haven't hit the point yet where these games truly actually matter to me. When I hit top 100, these games should be games I love. But at 287, I enjoy these games. Get Bit is in my collection of games I bring with me that are all packed into a big case of games. I bring these with me because they're games that are fast, easy to put out and play. They're good for kids. I don't think this is a game I'd ever play really as just adults, but it's great to have for like friends who have children who want to play with us. To say like, okay kids, why don't we play this game and we all can play together, and then when it's done, you let the kids go and see if they want to play something else by themselves or keep playing that game a couple more times, and now the adults move on to the real board game. And I can enjoy this game with the kids. So for that reason, 287. 286, Power Grid. Now the reason Power Grid gets the jump above Brass and somehow Get Bit is the sandwiched in between. Power Grid, I feel like, is a more complicated version of Ticket to Ride, kind of in like its visual and the approach of like trying to connect things. And it's dark, kind of like Brass Birmingham, but I find it's a little easier to get than Brass. But it's not as... Brass feels like a worker placement with the ability to build buildings. Whereas when you're looking at Power Grid, it feels like Ticket to Ride with a little bit of an auction going on. So that's more like basically Power Grid has a better ability to hit and enjoy it, but it doesn't have the ceiling that Brass Birmingham has. If you're getting optimal enjoyment from both games, Brass should be the better game. But the problem is that if you're not getting optimal enjoyment, the more likely game you're going to have a more fun per time play is Power Grid. Power Grid is a little bit more ease of in. You don't have to play it constantly to enjoy it, although that makes it better. So that's why it gets a little bit higher for my list, because I don't play either very often, so that one gets the edge. 285, Targi. Now, Targi's a game that I primarily played on Board Game Arena. It's fine. You know, you place down 1, 2, 3 different things, and based on the 3 things that you dropped, you're going to end up getting 1, 2 connections, and you basically get the 3 things on the outside, the 2 on the inside, and now you try to score your points. It's fine. It's a fast game. It's a 2-player game. I think for a Board Game Arena game, it was a cool area to go try and play and learn, but I would never want to buy this game. It's one that I would be fine with playing with somebody else if they wanted me to play, but I don't think I'm bad at it. I actually think I'm fine at it. It's not a game that necessarily grabs me regularly. I think there's better 2-player options that are nowhere comparable to the game's style. That style is not for me all the time. But I do like the concept of I place here, you place there, I place over here, and now all of a sudden you're like, oh shoot, I was going to do this spot, but you've already cut me off. I like that. So there's a lot of real battling there of wits, and I like that. 294, Ghost. So this is another one that's going to get pulled out and put onto my table of the, hey, it's Halloween, what games are we playing? It's a deck of cards. You're going through, you're trying to essentially defeat the ghosts. It's from a company that's made other card games I've really liked. It's my least favorite from that company, but it's a good game. It's not one I almost ever pick. I haven't pulled to the table in a couple years now, but it's a great option for Halloween. It's a great option for the month of October, and it's got fun to it. You know, I think that this one's a much bigger step up from, say, Rest in Peace. So for me, this is the more likely game so far of the ones I've named that I would actually pick out of that group on the table. And it's the one I'd be pointing towards as of right now. 283 Pups. Now, Pups is a trick-taking game, but it's a dog trick-taking game. It's interesting. It was a Kickstarter. I got it. I tried it with my wife, and we didn't love it. We felt like other trick-takers were so much better. Yet, somehow, I have gone on to Board Game Geek, and on Board Game Geek, people have reached out, seeing this is my collection, asking if they can take it. You know, hey, can we buy that from you? It's such a small game. It's so easy to put to the table, and it's got a theme that I know, like my daughter, a few of my sisters, some of my friends' kids love the idea of the dog theme. That's really why I got the game, was the theme. That I don't want to give it up. But it never made it to stores. So people have been trying to hunt it down and have offered me money. Nothing crazy, but if the game cost me like 30, I could probably make 40 or 45 off of it because it's not out there. That being said, I like a trick taker. I like its theme, and its intention was never to be my main trick taker. It was to be a trick taker to introduce people with a theme they'd enjoy to start to figure out if they like the mechanic. 282 Speculation. This is another Kickstarter. Now, this was a Kickstarter that when I got it, it was a relaunch. They were trying to get Speculation, an old school game, back to the tables. You're playing the stock market, and as you're moving through, you're buying and selling and buying all these different things. And when you get to the end, you figure out, you sell everything you have left, you gather your money up, and you see who has the most money. It's okay. It's a bag builder. Well, not a bag builder, but you're removing from the bag to make your picks every time you're doing this. And you're rolling a die in some cases to randomize what you're going to do additionally to this. It's okay. It wasn't as strong as I was really hoping. It's one that I picked it about a year ago to play. So it's one of the more recents. I was really excited to get it back to the table, and I played it with my game group. And it was fine. We didn't have a bad night. We didn't have a great night. It's not one I think I'd pick for that group again, but I might try it with my sisters again soon. Number 281, Summoner Wars 2nd Edition. Now, Summoner Wars is a game that's based around the idea of you're going to be doing tower defense. However, this is got a great theme, great art, great concept of building up your magic so you can use spell cards and attack the board and really try to mess with each other. I really like the concept of the game. I do not own it, but it's one that if I'm having a 2-player night with my friends where we go, hey, there's 2 or 4 or 6 of us and we'd like to do 2-player games, I actually may request to play this one day because it's not a game I've played very often, and I think that of all the tower defense games, it's the one that has the most likely chance of me enjoying it because the theme and the magic ability in that game are so cool. Number 280, A Feast for Odin. Oy, A Feast for Odin, it was kind of like Brass Birmingham, but in a different way. Brass Birmingham felt like there was a lot there, and I never truly had a grasp of everything in the game. A Feast for Odin was more so, there's a lot of pieces, and I grasped like 3 of them really well, but I didn't understand like the other 5. And as a result, I had a legit game and a game plan, but by the end, there were sections that me and my opponent never even touched, that if I had made any effort there, I could have easily run away with the game because I would have gotten all the points. It's a tough game because there's a lot going on, but you don't have to know it all. I think it's a better game to be playing at a higher count. I think that 2 or 3 player is weak with this game. You've got to go 4 player. But I think that this is a game that has a lot of ability there. It's a lot for setup. It's a lot for pack up. It takes a long time. Everything included. This could be, even at 2 players, almost 4 hours. That's too much for me. So it's not one I would go asking for because I don't want to go requesting somebody to do that setup or setting it up myself. But if somebody says to me, come on over, I'm going to play this tonight, I'll be excited because it's already pre-set up. So I'll take that. Number 279, Fleet. So this is another one that we've played primarily on Board Game Arena. It's the idea of, okay, you have money, cards come out, you're doing a bid, who's going to get it? You get your card, you add it to your fleet. You're going to be getting cards that are ships. The more ships you get, you're able to put out more of your different pieces or collect more fish. You're going to be getting cards that give you advantages for multipliers, that give you advantages for how many licenses you can hold, different types of fish that you're able to capture. It's all about getting out your ships, your captains, the types of fish that you're collecting, using their abilities to capture more fish in, and at the end of the game, most fish wins. So it's a good game. We enjoyed it. I don't think I'd ever request this game, but I had a blast. We played this a good dozen times. 278, Triassic Terror. Now, this is a game I got from Kickstarter, and back in the day, I was really excited to play this game. You're putting out into 4 different biomes. You can cross biomes, but when you do, you're losing dinosaurs because they're dying from the temperature exchange. You can move it up to higher levels, closer to the volcano. You have the T-Rexes, you have the pterodactyls, you have the raptors. And if you choose a card that allows you to play one of those, you can go and attack opponents and mess with their populations. And you're going to have multiple scorings. And when the scorings come up, you score based on total in an area. Higher up on it means that you break ties. People who have the most control in the higher ups to the lowers. There's a bunch of different areas to be scoring points from, and you score them 3 times in the game. Trash Pandas. Trash Pandas feels like it's kind of a party game, but not really. It's just it's more of a, I mean, you're rolling a die. You're going to now, after having rolled it, make the decision, because it now turns into a push your luck game. How many things can you collect? So you push your luck to collect things, to be going off to try to get different point sets of what you're collecting into your group. It's fine. It's a good little game. I think this is one that's really good for families or for friends who have some kids playing with them. This isn't one I'm picking for me and my wife or for me and my friends. 276, Just One. So it's another party game. This is one that is, I think, gonna hit more than most. It has a lot of opportunity. You have the ability to go up and you're giving your clue to try to see if you can get this off of your one clue. It's a fine game. I'm not stoked to play this, but at the same time, I think that a lot of my friends would actually consider to play this game compared to a lot of the other party games I've mentioned, because this gives us a little bit of variability for our group as well as my family group. So this might get a little bit of mixture between the two. 275, Reigns the Council. Now, Reigns the Council was one where you have a bunch of different things that you're trying to stay really centered on. And when you get certain cards that you play, it's going to be shifting you either left or right. And what you're trying not to do is ever hit the extreme of one side or the other. And when somebody does, it ends the round. It's a good game. There's a lot of, who are you choosing to use a card on? What cards have you drawn? Who are you facing off with? It's a good game. It's not one I would choose to play, but I've had it chosen from our game group a couple times, and every time I've had a good time. Number 274, Seven Ronin. Seven Ronin wasn't... I only played this game one time. And the idea of the game is you have your Seven Ronin, and then you have somebody else who's all the ninja. And essentially, depending on what it is that you've played into your area, you get to play your stuff out, and you're going to be playing defense, offense. The Ronin are trying to prevent the ninja from getting in and attacking the center of the game. The ninja are trying to wipe out the Ronin. So if you're playing things the right way, then you're going to be able to try and survive. You just have to make sure that the ninja don't conquer, so I forget how many spots it is, but so many spots on the board, because if they do, they win. But there's a limited amount of ninja. So I think there's 7 Ronin, there's 40 ninja. So you're trying to just wipe them off the board as fast as you can. And when the end of the game hits, hopefully you've prevented them from getting control. Number 273, Horrified. So here is a great Halloween themed game. Now there's the newer one that's like the American classics. That one's not as good. You want to go with the original Horrified. You're looking for Frankenstein, Dracula, Bride of Dracula, the Wolf Man, the Invisible Man. And the idea is that you can pick your difficulty. It's how many opponents do you have? You know, you're going easy. It's only like 1, 2, or you're going 3. How many people are facing them? And you're taking turns, and you have to go around and collect things to try to finish off their board. So you might be trying to collect blues because that's what you need to wipe out a certain opponent. Or you have to grab blue and drop it here for this opponent, and now you have to get a red, and now you have to get a green, and now you have to get a blue again, and now you have to get a green again. So each one has a pattern or something that you're trying to collect and get, but you also have to look out because they're chasing you on the board. Whenever they get you, you drop everything, you get pulled back to where you started, and you only have so much time to beat them. So your hope is to wipe somebody out completely so you all of a sudden the game gets way easier leveled and you can be really fast in your follow-up turns. But it's a game that I don't own it. I don't think I'll ever buy it because I'm not a huge co-op fan, but I'm really excited to play this every Halloween. It's one I would be really pro somebody owning so I can play it. 272, we're going back to the old classics. This is Yahtzee. I was a huge Yahtzee fan growing up. I liked Yahtzee because the idea of, okay, yes, it's dice rolling. But it's dice rolling where I look at the results of my first roll and I get to choose as many dice as I want for a reroll. And now off the reroll, I do that again. And you could try to aim for something. You might be thinking, I'm going to go for the 5 of a kind. But you roll your initial 4 and you go, well, I got a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. So I'll reroll this extra 2 because if I can get a 1 or a 6, I make a large straight. I already have a medium one. And if I miss it, I roll it again, and I have another shot at it. Or you might be saying like, oh, well, I've got 2 2s, 2 5s, and a 6. Well, I'll go for the 4 5s. I haven't gotten 4 of a kind yet. Let's re-roll and see what we can get. I like the fact that there's ways to redirect. The game doesn't have it be pure luck because you can have 2 re-rolls, which allows you to take advantage of what the original roll was and try to curve it in a direction towards what you need. Number 271, Hanabi. Hanabi is a fireworks game where you hold your hand up so only your opponents or your team can see it. You're all working together. And you only get to have one piece of information. So, you know, you basically get to give a piece of information of like, oh, that's a green card or that's a 1. And then you're trying to place a card down. And the way it works is that when somebody places a card down, you need to get a 1 to start a pile. But you can only have a pile of a certain color once. So if you've started a green pile and you've got a green 1 out, now the next person, you're trying to get out either a yellow 1, a red 1, a blue 1, whatever they are, or you're trying to get out the 2 for that pile that already has a 1. And if you can't do any of that, you're trying to find a way to maybe discard cards or whatever it may be. But whenever you make a mistake, you're going to add a piece to the fuse. And eventually, or I should say, you're actually removing from the fuse. And if the fuse ever goes all the way down, it means you've set off the firework display. At which point you then go and check based on all your different piles and you see where you ranked for score and how well you did. It's a fun game, and this is one I would pick. I think this is a game that I picked less than a year ago for me and my mom and my sister to play. It's not an often pick, but it's one that I would definitely pull out and play at random on an afternoon when I have half an hour with some family or friends. 270, Tic Tac KO, Cute versus Evil. So this is another fun, cute little game. It's one I would pick once in a while. It's all about trying to take your maneuvers to get different spots on the board, and you're trying to get your tic-tac-toe. I think it's a good game. I'm going to play this once in a while, and this is a game that I'm really picking it for my daughter. Number 269, Professor Treasure's Secret Sky Castle. So this is only a game I own because I picked it up to review for all of you. I picked it up as one of my cheaper game buys so that I could try the game out and see what I thought. It's good. It's actually a pretty cool concept of a game. I feel like this is more of a solo play for me. And because of that, it's not one I have to worry about on the how often would I play it list. It's just when do I have a little bit of time to jump in there and attempt this game? But I played it a couple times myself, and I thought it was good, and it's definitely one I could see myself playing out once or twice a year. 268, it could have been a lot higher. The problem is I have nobody to face. Shogi. So if you've ever played chess, Shogi is the game that really inspired chess. It is a game I wondered if it existed because I was a huge Naruto fan. And on the show, I had a character I loved called, and I haven't watched the show in a while, so now I'm having a little bit of a mind issue here. I want to say it was Shikamaru. And he used to play shogi with his dad and with his mentors. And one day I was like, is that a real game? And I looked it up and I was like, wow, this is like one of the oldest games. So I bought a board. I had it sent to me from, I think it was from Japan. And it's great. The problem is nobody knows how to play. And if you've ever played chess and you don't have anybody else who plays chess and you get annoyed because you don't have a good opponent, you don't know the struggles of a shogi player. Somebody who learned the game. Now, I'm not a great player. I haven't played in years now. But I would play it all the time if I had somebody to play it with who I could legitimately learn the game with. But nobody I know knows the game. So I'm constantly stuck with no opponent. So as a result, it's a game that sits on my shelf. But it's this high up because I love the concept of the game. And if ever I could find somebody I could play at least once or twice a week, I would play this game every time I had an opportunity to. 267, Eclipse. For anybody who's ever played Eclipse, that game is crazy. It's about a 3-hour commitment. You're building up ships, and you're building up different pieces to each of your ships. So, I have this style ship. I've worked on its guns. I've worked on its speed. I've worked on its shields. You know, I'm going to different planets. I'm collecting resources to spend to continue to improve. You're playing this game out, and you can fight, but a lot of the game isn't fighting. And then all of a sudden, it can turn into quite a battle. And I think that this is one of those games that is rare to get to your table. It's going to be a very... It's one of those games that if you own it, which I don't, but if you do, it's a once or twice a year game, and you know that going in. But it's only about 3, maybe 4 hours at most, and you know it's going to end in one of the craziest space battles you've ever had. I remember when I played the game last, that we ended it and there were 4 of us playing, and we ended up in a 2-on-2 space battle. We went into the battle and 2 of us teamed up against the other players. And during the battle, my partner turned on me and joined the other side. I still managed to pull out the victory because I had clearly the best fleet for being built up. But my partner who turned on me because we took out one opponent, and he was like, okay, now it's a 2-on-1, let me jump to the other side because I don't trust you. And he was right. And eventually it ended. But that's the reason to play the game. That's why it's so high, because it is worth the once in a while play. And the last game for today is You've Got Crabs at 266. It's another party game. It's one of my sister's games that they just love to play. You know, you have a little crab, I think it's like a crab claw in there that you can throw at somebody when you yell, "You've got crabs." You're trying to come up with signals during the game so that you can signal your partner, and your opponents are trying to figure out what your signal is so that they can figure out when you're lying, when you're not lying. Do you have crabs? Do you not have crabs? It's a fun little game. It is one that is one of my favorites that they pick for a party game. And so while I won't just say I want to play that game, if I'm told, hey, we're playing a party game tonight, and my sister pulls out her collection of 5 to 10 party games, it's one of the more likely I'm going to be like, let's play that one. So, You've Got Crabs. Well, this is the second day. We're doing 315 through 266. It's our second group of 50. I hope you guys have enjoyed the list. Today's group had nothing I disliked on the games. It was just games that I don't own / don't really want to request to play. But if you asked me to play, I'd be okay with it. So it's a pretty good group. I think tomorrow's grouping, we're going to start to get a little bit better and see what other options we have on the table for maybe games that I'm going to start being interested in picking myself once in a while. Well, thank you again for checking in. You've been speaking to the Meeple's champion. I'll talk to you tomorrow.